So in the US, and this is like from different surveys, children are more likely to keep their faith if the fathers attend church. If fathers don't attend, only approximately 2% of children would attend regularly. In the UK, 76% of young men in prison grew up without their father's presence. When I read that, I almost started crying.
Yeah.
Because I'm a data person. I work with data, so I know that correlation does not always mean causation, right? But you cannot neglect the association. What was it like growing up without your dad?
I'm so hungry. I called my dad, he just called. I'm going to call you. And I called him alone. I called him out in 2 weeks, I'll be back. I'm like, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Don't leave me here. And 2 weeks turned into months into years, and he never came home.
The fatherhood of God will heal you.
Yeah.
It is the one thing, like you can walk all your years as somebody who knows God as Jireh, who knows God as Rapha, who knows God as Healer. Yeah. You might even know him as El Shaddai, right? And not know that he is Father. Yeah. Hi everyone, welcome back to the It Ends With Me podcast. If you are new here, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. This is one of the newer episodes and I really hope that you followed through all the previous episodes and you're going to have a great time. It's a faith and transformation podcast, and as always, my goal is for you to become the best version of yourself and doing life the way God wants you to do it. Today's episode is special. I mean, every episode is special to me, but today's episode is very, very special. From growing up without her dad to teenage years, to love and acceptance. Today's guest is going to be talking about something that is so rampant in our generation and probably from generations before: daddy issues and the fatherhood of God. And I'm so excited to welcome her. We're going to have a great conversation. I have Olamide here with me. Don't worry, well, I'm still trying to calm down. Well, it used to pick up. Exactly. So we'll pick up. But please sit back. If you haven't, please subscribe to this channel, like, post a comment, share it with someone who would really need this, right? Don't keep it to yourself. There's one person, two people who would need this episode and any other episode on this channel. Please do feel free to share it. Olamide, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Today we don't have a couch, but welcome to the chair.
Okay. Anyone.
Welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that we're finally doing this. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself.
Okay.
And I also want you to tell me how your year has been. We've entered the last quarter. How has your year been?
Oh my God.
After you introduce
Okay, so hi. Thanks so much for having this podcast. Such an honor, to be here. And my name is Olamide Oladere. I'm a child of God. I know so many people say that, but this one, when I say I'm a child of God, I am a child of God. I don't think there's another introduction that beats that introduction for me. Every other thing comes under it, right? So yeah, I'm super excited to be here once again. And I think I'm one of those who is actually loved by God, right? Because when I'm going to say how my year has been as well, I would just put it in a statement that says, I've been greatly loved by God this year. So many things have happened. And this last quarter, like this month, something just started happening. I'm like, you think I'm going to doubt a lot of football? No way, right? And I'm still standing and I'm just grateful to God. So yeah, so far so good. My day has been great. There's been a lot of challenges. God. But then after everything, we keep winning. So that's just it for me.
We keep winning. Apostle Manuel, Aaron will always say, we always win. Always win. Like, every time I think about that, I'm like, it doesn't matter how the year has gone. I always win.
100.
Right? It's like, no matter how they spin it, it's going to work out for my good.
Exactly.
Right? It's going to be just as God has said it. So I really love that. What is one thing you want someone, maybe something you're telling yourself that you want someone to hold on to in the next few months of 2025?
I think for me, that would be keep moving. Just keep moving. Because if you stop, it's just like, children of Israelites when they are told them to go around the Jericho, 7 times. If you stop like third time, you won't see the miracle, right? And there's always been things that God has done before that you can hold on to as a receipt of the faithfulness of God. Because I think that's one thing that works for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's also one of the reasons why I keep journals. Journals help me to record the faithfulness of God. And it's my receipt. So when the devil comes and say, oh, I'm like, guy, I've got a receipt to show you. Yeah, you go. And I keep moving regardless of what happens.
That's so good. And I think the reason why is when you don't take action, that in itself is an action in itself. So if you just say, oh, it's just 3 months to go, all the things that I'm supposed to get done can't be done, right? You've sort of shut the year out. And there's still so much good in the year. So please keep moving. Keep moving. Please, I beg you, don't give up. Don't give up. And just particularly for somebody who actually wants to give up. Right. I'll be praying a lot for strength for myself and for my friends. And I know that the year hasn't particularly been great for a lot of people. So in case you are feeling depressed, you're anxious, you're tired, it has been bad upon bad upon bad upon bad. Sometimes the good is right when you finish just unboxing everything. So please do not give up and just keep moving. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the stats. Let's go back. I mean, we're talking about something important today. Well, I want to hear from you. How did it begin? What was it like growing up without your dad?
It's a very long one anyways, but I'll try to keep it short. Yeah, so growing up without my dad was not something I envisaged. No, right. I've always been that girl, kind of thing. I think it's just how God designed it, where boys are naturally drawn to their mom and then girls to their dad. And I feel like God is so wise. That thing, you don't need to necessarily say, oh, go to the school for that. It just naturally happens. You see with babies nowadays, the first thing the girl will call is dada. No matter how the mother tries. They're always pain, but I'm like, guys, stop stressing. That's how God is.
I have a scientific explanation to that. I'll keep it for another time.
So, it's just the way it was designed, right? And for me, I really, no, right. I think right from when I was young, I think it's just when I start to think about it, that's when I remember that I always drew my sense of security and cover from him. Right, my mom was there, but then it was more like when my dad is there, he's quite different. When I was very young, right? So I've not always stayed with them. I think 9 months I was staying with my grandparents, and then brought me back home, and then I went back to my grandparents again, and then I came back to them. And coming back to them didn't mean I stayed with them, because I had an aunt to give birth, and then I had to go stay with her as well. So it wasn't very stable to, that kind of routine where you wake up and you have your mom and your dad, greet them, go to school, come back, and it's the same, Today I could do good morning, mom and dad, and then I'll go and in the afternoon say, you're going to your auntie's place. I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. Sometimes it will be so painful because I just want to stay with my parents, but then I had to go help out. But then I think I came back home. Yeah, I came back home when I was going to GS class, and at that point, I thought it was going to be so interesting because, I'm going to GS class. And GS class, secondary school in Nigeria, like your college.
High school.
Oh, is it high school?
Yeah, high school.
Okay, high school. Anyway, so I just, go back home and I was so excited. I'm still with my parents, and I went to school. I was 9 years. Yeah. I was 9 years when I went to GS class, and we had resumed our started schooling. My mom, dad, everybody was home. And this particular day I was going to school, I just heard them arguing. I don't see my parents argue. I mean, they had so love him. We would play games, a whole lot of very interesting things that family would do, and that's what we usually do. But then this day I saw them, I heard them arguing so much. I was about to enter the room, you're preparing, you're done. Yeah, I'm going to school, and you're arguing. And I'm like, what could have happened? But then I started hearing things like, oh, why would you use my money to pay our school fees? Da, da, da. And that was my own school fees. Because you had just gotten into school, so they have to like pay all the bills at once and all. And I think my mother has used one of his money that was with her or something to pay, and then with the hope that she was going to pay him back or something. It didn't add up in my head. Because I'm like, when we go back and forth sometimes, I could almost feel like I was his best child.
Mm.
You get. But then in that moment, everything went off. Like, why is he again about my school fees? Was he not going to pay before, or what exactly? So it just looked very interesting to me that that was happening. And I went to school, you know, they drove us in the same car, don't worry. And they acted like everything was fine. But me, I had everything that was happening. So I went to school and then I go back and I greeted my mom in a shop, and then she was like, "Oh yeah, how are you? Oh, where's that? Oh, that's traveled." I'm like, "What do you mean travel? Travel to where? He didn't tell me he was going anywhere. Normally, if he was gonna do that, we'd sit you down and then say, so I'm going for so and so trip or whatever, because it was into politics, and then he would tell you, oh, I have meetings and all that. But this time, he didn't tell me anything, and then just left. I was so angry. I called my dad. He just go, I'm going to call him. And I called him and I was like, oh, in 2 weeks I'll be back. And I'm like, better be back in 2 weeks. Don't leave me here. And 2 weeks turned into months, months into years, and he never came back. Or once in a while we would like communicate, and then I think it got to a point where we never even communicated again.
From age 9.
From age 9, yeah. And that
How
was.
does that make you feel?
I think I feel stripped. Yeah, I felt stripped of the cover that was upon my life, kind of. Because it's just like they would say that your father is your first, you know, sense of security and, you know, covering. And that was something for me. So if it left a void anyways, a void that I think for years I was trying to fill from different kind of relationships. So it was showing up in ways where if I met people, or if I met guys who were like way older than me, I just call them elder brothers straight up. So some of them thought I was doing it by, you know, they thought I was doing it in a way like I was trying to brother zone them. But I was coming from that wound. Yeah. So I just kept on any small thing. I was just like, oh, you behave like a big brother to me. I mean, it got me into trouble when I was in uni anyway, but then, you know, it was just like, so get me, yes, please. But then it was coming up in that way where I still wanted a sense of security no matter what. So it made me feel stripped. It made me feel like I wasn't loved. It also made me feel like I was a problem because it was from my school fees arguments. Even though much more later, I later realized that was not the reason. But I'd carried the burden for so much years. Like since I think I got to uni, it was when I found Jesus actually that burden was lifted off my spirit. Because I would see my mom go through a lot and I'm like, gosh, it's just because of my school fees. You get? But it was much later I realized that it wasn't my school fees. It was maybe some other things, because even to me, I still don't know why. But then I realized there was something else that could have happened.
And how many were you?
We're just
2, you and your brother.
Yeah, my brother and I.
That's a lot. I think sometimes people say it's easy when you never knew the person. Right?
Well, I think it's crazy, yeah.
But when you know the person, you built a relationship with the person. And was there an apology?
Yeah, apology came last year. Funny enough.
How many years after? Over how many years after?
That's like more than 15. Yeah, apology came last year, and I also think it was. I mean, times to that number, I would say something like, "Oh, I've forgiven him. If he knew better, I would have done better." Blah blah blah. I also realized it wasn't like a forgiveness that was 100% done. Yeah, because you can actually say you forgive somebody, but the impact is still there. At least that was one of the things that God started to like teach me. Because that last year it was even very funny that he came to apologize, and then someone who had like hurt me in time past as well was like second person I had see, like elder brother ish that hurt me seriously. Also that came back between the same month. And I'm like, God, you can't be putting me just through much it was just too much to handle that last year because I was also traveling. You know, I was hey. So I said, "Go on, which kind of one? Don't bab me this now. I can't, I can't look good on this one." And then God was telling me something because I know 2018 when I started my work with God, He had mentioned giving beautiful ashes. And last year was 7 years, I think. Or this year, 7 years that I started my work with God, and He told me something. He said, "You've been holding onto these ashes for so long." He said, "If you don't drop it, I can't give you the beauty you want. So you have to forgive these people." So when it came for the apology, I had to let it go. It was tough. I cried dirty because I didn't even know I was still very hurt like that. I was so hurt when I saw him again because I'm like, gosh, no. I didn't even need your money. I didn't need any. I just needed you to be like present. That was what I wanted. But then you going was crazy for me. I'm not sure I really understand, the depth of what happened, what had occurred in time past and everything. But then, yeah,
you didn't know the magnitude of the hurt.
Yeah.
And do you think, I mean, you already said that even before the apology came, you had forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
You think the apology brought a new level of forgiveness? Like, what changed?
Okay, I think what changed for me was just the fact that I could put a face to what had happened so far. Kind of, I didn't forget the way my father looked anyway. But then when I saw him again, was just bringing a face to the person I was forgiving. Because it's been years that has passed for me.
You had not seen him until last year.
Until last year. There was no, even though where I went to school, I heard he was in the same state with me, but I'm not sure he tried looking for me or something. And I didn't try looking for him as well. So I think there was a time he went home, but I was not at home. I was in school, so he couldn't see me. So he had to go. But then if he really wanted to see me, I thought he would have come to my school.
Yeah.
Like probably look for me or something, but that's all the stories that was now. So but forgiveness for me just brought a face to it. And each time I kind of remember, I'm like, I forgive you. It's hard, right? But then because the impacts, the things that gone through and all of those things, but I also thank the Lord. Because I think that really brought me into a kind of relationship with God that nothing else could have done for me. So I think that's my consolation.
So there's something we said that I want to pick up on before I ask my next question. During those years when you didn't see him, was he doing anything for you?
Absolutely no.
No.
Yeah.
So there was no paying school fees. Your mom?
No, my mom was the mom and dad. I mean, that one was right. She was mom and dad.
And both for you and your brother?
Absolutely. She was the one who was doing every single thing. I think there was a time we called. I mean, people get tired. Yeah. So I think there was a time my mom, she was tired. She was like, call your father and ask for your school fees. And we called him. And because he's in politics and all of them, they were like, no, he's looking for, I think he said when he has currently for the states, blah, 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 that he wants to. I'm like, wow, for the states.
Showing up for the state and not showing up
for his family. I'm like, okay, thank you so much. God bless you, sir. Bye. Yeah. And that whole conversation just made me know I needed to be responsible for my life no matter what happened. So that was just something for me. So immediately I heard that, I'm like, every man for his head in his life. Yeah, so I just moved on. I mean, before then anyways, I've always been like very responsible. I think I moved into being very responsible very young, like 9. Even before I was 9, I was saving my money. 5 naira, 10 naira, I would save. I had a post for contribution that I was doing. And I would save my money for different things. Secondary school, I was buying school bag for me and my brother. So many things. It landed me in trouble anyway because I later found myself having issues with ulcer and all of that because I didn't eat regularly and all of that. And then my sense of responsibility was very high anyway. Yeah, because of all the things I'd seen. And then seeing my mom strive so much for us also made me feel like you can't depend on anyone. And that also influenced my relationship with God anyway, in a sense. But now I'm learning to rest. I'm learning to surrender. I'm learning to accept and receive love. So, yeah.
Let's stay there. let's stay in how that absence shaped you. You had one parent. One would think that one would be enough. But I love the fact that you started with you felt you lost your sense of covering and security. What were the ways that showed up in your everyday life? What maybe even still shows up? How has it shaped who you are? I can see a bit of the hyper independence there, the responsibility mindset. What other ways?
Okay, so truly you would have thought one parent was enough. But like I said, God is wise. When he gave us the two parents, he knew what was at stake if both of them were not in sync and doing what they were meant to do. And I think that's one of the reasons why the enemy also fights the family no matter what. It's like he's against it. If they thrive together and raise the children together, best believe that those seeds will be, a terror against this kingdom. Yeah. So, but when it came to just one parent, covering my brother and would I even say I'm not sure there was a real sense of covering my mom. I think God, I'm not thinking, now when I think about it, God has always been in the picture. Do you get? Because she was busy being mom and dad, that some things were actually left out. Do you get? So I could be hyper independent, which was, it has good part of it. It also has very big negative part of it, not being able to accept help from anyone, pride, self-sufficiency, and so many other things, was coming out of that for me. Another part I think that showed up for me was, not being able to trust people. I never trusted anybody. I didn't care how much you showed love to me. I just felt like if my father could leave, why you not to go? Bye. So it made me get to that place where I didn't trust anyone. And I also never felt like I would miss you if you go. It was just so easy for me to numb things. I learned how to mask pain quite early, right? So I could be hurting from something, but you will not know because I'm not going to show it to you, right? And that was something I also realized that I was numbing things. And it got to a point where it broke me anyway. Because it's just like covering like a wound over and over again. It will keep decaying. And then the day will just start stinking. It will start smelling out. You won't be able to take care of it at that point. So it got me to that place where I could mask pain. I would be hurting a lot. You will not know. I would just try to take care of it. Some things I didn't take care of them later showed up in my life, much more later. But then the other ones, I would try my best to just navigate it and then move on. Yeah. So not trust. I didn't trust anyone. I have a best friend. I feel like she went through a lot with me. And she's my best friend today because she's stood by me. Even in those days, I knew when we started our friendship, we were in secondary school, and from time to time she would say things like, "Oh, I love you, this, that, I love you too." Anyway, but it didn't usually get, deep down. And I remember when we were in uni, I went to my uni and then she came to meet me there. So we went to the same uni again. And I was going through the level of things and I couldn't share with her. I couldn't even get her that this was what was happening with me. And, she would come, knock my door. I'm inside. She even knows I'm inside. I will not answer her. She would write me letters. I'll take the letters and tear them, throw it away. She did almost every single thing just to talk to me and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't care. It didn't even move me at all. And that was, way before my work with God started. So it showed up in those days, masking my pain, getting numb to things, 100%. I'm so used to that. Even now, I'm already healing out of it. But then sometimes, I was telling a friend of mine, I said, I'm sorry that, recently anyway, I was talking to him and I'm like, I'm so sorry that I'm acting this way. It's just that I feel like I get used to things so fast, right? So if something's wrong, let's move on. There's a factory set thing, but I'm still taking it to God to say, God, please help me to work on this because I know it's a journey. Healing is a journey, it's not a destination. So I was just, it was straight up in those ways for me. And I think the other one is trust. And then the other one, okay, we already mentioned, hyper dependence. And I think that the fourth one for me is being vulnerable. I'm not vulnerable in any sense. I wasn't vulnerable to anything, even when it comes to vulnerable to the sense of asking for help. I remember when I was working in Nigeria, my boss would say something like, "Do you have people you talk to?" Because I feel like it just could sense that there's something about this girl that needs healing. Yeah. So we'd say things like, Olamide, do you have someone you talk to? Because I feel like you need to ask, ask. And I'm like, this one just don't stress me. See, yes, ask. If you need something, just ask something. Ask someone. Tell someone you need something. Don't hover it. Don't try to figure it all out yourself. He said it will be too slow for you to move in life if you keep doing that to yourself. He said, because God has given you every single person and resources and everything is in the hands of people. So if you don't ask, there's no way you know that, okay, they can actually help you with it. But if you keep your mouth shut and you're thinking, oh, if I tell this person, what will this person say? Yeah. He said, you won't really move far in life with that. So it was also like, it was also struggling in my life, like, I have to ask. So yeah, I feel like those were ways I like showed up for me.
Firstly, this is so relatable, and I mean, not relatable. I think, which is a balance that I want to bring to this conversation, is that sometimes you can have a present dad, but not a perfect dad. And I think that daddy issues show up in many ways. That's, I mean, in the circumstances with which they show up. I've seen people who, they have good dads. Their dads show up for them, right? But they saw that their dads were not great husbands. Their dads had flaws.
Yeah.
That's still a form of daddy issue that shows up in maybe how you think about men, or how you think about relationships with people. Or it could have just been a specific season of his life where he wasn't perfect. And that season was so defining for you as a person, and it begins to show up. So you've essentially built a life on someone's season. Right. And so I wanted to bring that balance that, yes, we might be talking about daddy issues from the point of an absent father, but some people have present, in quotes, the dads are there. Doesn't mean that they are good or mean that they are great. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that is perfect. I think there is some form of trauma that we're carrying, regardless of where you grew up. Right? It will show up somehow, somewhere. But I don't believe in building an entire life on trauma and all. So I wanted to bring a balance that you might be listening and saying, oh, I grew up with my dad, but I'm still like this.
Yeah. So what's the difference?
So what's the difference? The difference is in the action and what you have taken from that action. So you can be overly hyper independent, and that might maybe be because you grew up with a dad who didn't pay your fees,
actually,
or didn't give you money, or who you had to. He might have even done it, but maybe you had to beg for it or ask for it. Or some people grow up with dads that they provide, but emotionally they can't. Right, that's a different type of wound and daddy issue. But I think sometimes you see it show up in most of the things that you've said about, you've spoken about. I know. I also wanted to bring another balance in where, because I might not be able to get another guest to talk about the balance now, but I want to address it. The balance is when the dad is present and maybe a bit overprotective. And then we see women, or even men, and I'll share some stats very soon, right? So it's not just a women thing, please, right? We see people who come out and they are now overly dependent, not just on the dad, but on people.
On people, yeah.
Right? You grew up and your dad was always, any small thing he picks up, right? And now you can't stand on your own, right? So one person is dealing with hyper independence, another person is dealing with overly dependent, right? And maybe even not maybe to the dad, right? That maybe if that dad leaves, they now become overly dependent on in their romantic relationships or in their friendships, or they can't be corrected, or they can't take corrections and things like that. So I want you to be able to take a step back and see, where does that show up in my own life? I think we do see quite a lot of the hyper independent one a lot more, just because of society, and all of that. So I'm really grateful that you shared how it shaped you, and I'm glad that we've brought a bit of the balance to it. One area that I want to know how it shaped is your faith.
Okay. So my faith. I think normally I would say my walk with God started 2018. But then sometimes when I think back, I feel like I don't feel like God has actually always been in the picture. While I was coming on the way to this place, it was just clicking in my head, like God actually was placing strategic people in my life, right? Who kept on showing up, especially when it comes to the provision aspect. She gets so they would just show up. Like my uncle when I was in uni just said, "Oh, I just got back from church one day. I was a churchian. A churchian is someone who just goes to church and nothing's really happening in your life. Don't worry. You don't have work with God, but you just, warm the benches in church and all of that." And I just go back and then my uncle just called. I think they had said we should do first fruits. I didn't know what first fruits was then. I just said, "Oh, my last money in my bank account, I'm going to drop it. God, this is my first fruits." And I just joked about it. It was even funny for me. I got home and I was sharing my mom that, "Oh, Mama, I paid first fruits." And she was like, "Who told this one?" I just told her, I said, I paid first fruit. And she was like, "Okay, so that what?" I said, "So that not so. I just paid first fruits." But I feel like God was actually teaching me something from that time. I didn't understand anything like soul reap, whatever, all of those things. But then my uncle just called and was like, "Oh, I'm going to be paying your rent henceforth." And that was like my first year in uni. So he paid Ultra. I left. Ultra was in uni, rather, till I left, and there was no issue. And, God always reminds me of sacrifice. Do you get the understanding and all of that? So I would say my work with God started 2018, but I think God has always been there. Do you get? I don't think God has always been there. He's been showing up in different ways. But 2018 was when I would say it was very profound. I'd searched for God in different ways. I promise you. As much as I didn't have a walk with God, I wanted something more. I'd gotten to uni. I gained admission while I think I was still 15 when I gained admission. 16. I was 16 when I gained admission, so I went to uni, and obviously everybody was like very big down me and all those things. So when they say secretary, this and that, I'm like, "What's wrong with you people? I'm sure I hear it all of you, so it's not my business." So I was in school, and one thing led to the other. I got into trouble with someone, and it was so much that I could not even I couldn't save myself, obviously. And because I didn't have like so great relationship with my mom, I couldn't share with her like this is what was happening. So I was trying all my possible best to get out of trouble myself. I would try. I'd do everything. Nothing was working. At some point I resorted like, oh, I was going to commit suicide. I attempted suicide like 4 times. I took 10, nothing happened. The last one was I had heard the news that I killed someone in I think one school that was not very far from us. So I'm like, Apple works nice. Let's try this one. So I'd gotten bleach, I'd gotten everything. I was so ready to I was so tired of life. I was just dead tired. I'm like, if this whole issue is not gonna go, then might as well just take the life. So I sat down with my iPod, everything. I was ready to take it. And my best friend came around and she was at my door. I had mentioned initially how she would come, knock my door, and then go because I wouldn't respond. This one, she stayed. She didn't go. She stood, she was knocking. She said, "I know you're inside. You just nod your padlock as if you're not inside. I know you're inside." And then my mom started calling at the same time. And then my neighbor started knocking at the same time. Everybody was as if it was as if they deployed angels to go and bring everybody out of their rooms and say, "Come and stay in front of our door." This one was all do whatever she wanted to do. So everybody was knocking my window, my door, my bathroom door. Everybody was so angry and pissed. It's like, "What's wrong with all of you?" I was crying, and then so my face was swollen and everything. So when I saw that they were not going to leave, I packed everything, just cleared it off, and then I started yawning like I was sleeping. I just woken up, and then I was like, "Why are you all stressing? I was sleeping. Why is she?" And then my mom was shouting on somebody's phone while I was like, "Where are you? This, that. What's happening to you? I've been trying to call you." And I'm like, "I'm in my room. I didn't even go anywhere." And then she told them to give me the foundation. Like, "What's happening?" There's a connection with mother and children that I don't know how God did it anyway. So she started crying on the phone and she was like, "What's happening to you? Can you just tell me? This, that." I'm like, "Nothing. I'm fine." She said, "I'm the one that gave birth to you. You can't tell me what's happening." I said, "Nothing." My husband was like, I was not ready to share with anyone what was happening. So that day, I said, okay. I sat down in my room after everybody had gone. I said, you this God, I've been looking for you everywhere. You're not sure. Are there special people? I was going to church then and I would see people praying in tongues. I felt they were very special chicken because they were speaking tongues and everything. So I'm like, why are these people special? I mean, I'm not special. I've tried, I didn't wear trousers for a period. I'm like, maybe it's because of the trousers that I was wearing. So I said, oh, let me not wear trousers. So I'll wear Miramaka skirts, wear big tops, as in wear everything. At some point, I stopped wearing the ring. I saw that all of this is nothing changed. So I went back to wear my trousers. And then I was wearing my leggings as well. So I just stayed in my room that day and I said, you better show me yourself. If not, this is the last one. And nobody will try it again to stop me at any point. And now taking pills, nothing happened. You didn't kill me. I don't die. This one, I'll be tried by myself and just stab myself and then we'll be gone. So I threatened God that day. And then I just sat down in my room. So the next day, my best friend had come from church. We attended saying she came to my church for a special program. So they shared like a flyer thing and I'm like, okay, interesting. I just dropped it and I said I'm not going. So she came that day and then she's like, the program starts today and you have to go. I'm like, why? I don't want to go. Don't you get it? She said, I'm going to create a scene today. Is that how you go with me? Or I create the scene and everybody will come and ask us what's happening. It was as if they sent out to me. So I followed her that day and I went to church. I got to church and first preacher came. She spoke about something. I can remember the program was Women of Purpose. And the woman had shared stories. It was kind of aligning with mine. And I'm like, this is why you're behaving spooky. This is the person I'm looking for God. I was still judging things. So I was just there. I was looking at her. I'm like, really? And your life is like this? Are you sure? You'll be aligned. I just sat down there. I was just looking at her. And then the other woman came. And the moment the woman came into the church, I knew something changed. I knew somebody stepped in. So I opened my eyes and then I looked at her. And I was very scared. So when she came in, she was like, oh, she came in and when she came in, she saw two groups of people. She described one of them fell into my category. I said, okay. And then the woman said, I'm going to start with a story. And I don't know where I'm starting, but I'm going to start with it. I came from Egbeda, Lagos. I don't stay there anymore, but I came from Egbeda. I mentioned that house of someone in this room. And that's where I stay. So I was like, that's my mom's show. That's where I've grown up for my life. That's why I'm still going when we have vacation. God, are you saying something? Am I seeing you now? And then she shared a whole lot of things. That day I broke down. I began to see life in a way. It was like, there's this description in the Bible where it says like the veil was taken off their faces. That was my testimony in that moment. So I cried so much. It was like there was a burden that was lifted a bit. And I'm like, okay, I think there's still something about life that I can then look forward to. After she had shared everything, I went back home the next day. I couldn't sleep that night. The next day, I was so hungry. At 4 a.m., I'd gone to church. Program that was starting by 6. I went there, sat down, and I was waiting. Like, who is the next preacher? Why is the preacher not here? Why are you late? I was just there sitting and waiting. And the person came, preached. After that program, everything was going very fast. It just looked like when God is ready for you, we'll hold you. Like you're not going anywhere. And there was this hunger that they now did in my heart that I was just yearning for the next thing. Another program came up, and that program was this seal where they had started preaching from the Bible. I've always heard preachers from the Bible. I don't want to understand what they say, but this one was very different. After they had preached, just could see life. My eyes was opened. This one is not like spooky, whatever. My eyes was genuinely opened. And in that moment, I'm like, I've been dead. I've been dead. Like, I was living, but there was nothing to write home about the life I had then. So after the whole thing, I started my journey with God. God started to I feel like that 2018 was a year that God compressed all the years I would have known him. I think I was 17 by this time. God compressed all the years and started teaching me things. Started from Lazarus' story. And that was like the story of my life. And then it taught me a whole lot of things. And that was how my journey with God started.
Do you think, what what do you think was the reason for that search for God so much? Like, what had you seen? What had you gone through that you just like you had searched for him maybe in the wrong places and all of that? Like, what was the reason? Was it a right desire or was it trying to cover up something?
It wasn't trying to cover up something. It was me trying to get saved from something, right? So I had gotten into trouble in school, which I'm not going to be like sharing all of this story. But then it got me to that place where I was like, what am I really living for? Do you get life making no meaning to me anymore at that point? I was just leaving. So there was this time I go back home, I had read a book titled Grass to Grace by someone. And she wrote about a relationship with God. I'm like, and it was so much of Father, you get to her, how somebody had tried to do something and then she went into the corner and said, Daddy God, look at what this person did to me. And I'm like, this is a relationship I have to go to. So I had that desire. I'm like, which I must have this kind of relationship. I wanted this kind of relationship. So I was asking people for different things. I would read materials, nothing. Then I was in school one day and somebody had come to meet me and said, oh, I want to preach the gospel to you. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go on. Then he said, you painted your nails. God cannot work in somebody that paints their nails. I say, eh? So that's what I'm missing out this while. So I was like, now I catch you good. So it's because I'm painting my nails. But it didn't make sense to me because even the nails I painted then, it wasn't like I used it for something. They were playing in my hostel and I just left my own nails for them to paint as well. Finish. Oh. So there was no motive, nothing about it that added to the whole thing. So I'm like, that cannot be it. And then he said, oh, you're wearing leggings. Funny thing, the leggings I was wearing was on a very baggy top. I told you I was wearing baggy tops and also I had mostly baggy tops. So I wore my leggings and I'm like, I didn't even wear it to do anything to anybody. So how will you say that it's because of this one? And he said, oh, in his room and in prayer, it's cloud. Blah, blah, blah. Say cloud. Okay, nice. So what else? Then he said, first you have to go and clean your nails, change your stop wearing leggings, and that's the only way you can find God. You know how devil can walk. And then this person was like, oh, before you can find God, you have to come to the mountain with me. And it happens there states where there's a lot of, mountains and all of that. So I go home that day, I thought about it. I said, should I go to this mountain or not? You are looking for God. So the devil to come and present options to say, this is where you go. I thank God for my life. I didn't go check. And there was this person from my church then. We usually have like morning devotions every Wednesday, I think. He had been coming for years. I would never answer him. I'll be here, but I won't answer him. But then this day he came and I just felt the urge to go. So I went for the morning devotion. And that morning devotion, he had said, oh, I think there's someone here. I mean, there are people in this place that needs to receive the spirit of, that needs to give their life to Christ again. And then receive the gift of the Holy Spirit, the evidence of speaking in tongues. And he said, we all need to come out and all of that. So I came outside, we prayed and everything. And that morning I was baptized. And I'm like, okay, is this fake? Because somebody had said whatever. But I just went home that day. I couldn't stop praying all through. And it was in that moment, I think the next day that my best friend had come. So imagine that God had started working already, but then there was still something in me that was pushing back. Then my best friend came, pushed me further, and then from there, I went to church, and I never stopped going to church from that time. So I needed a saving of the soul I had to get. There was something that wasn't just right about that life. So that was why I was like searching, and there was this void that I knew. All the things I had tried were not solving the problem. Yeah, they were not solving the problem. It was only God at that point.
I love that. I love the fact that you also said that there was a book you read and you loved the relationship the person had. I feel it was sort of like a calling onto you. That I didn't have this as well, but I have God as
She
Father.
had the same story.
Yeah, she had the same story and
everything.
It's sort of. And you see, it makes me think that there are people who go to God looking. You presented two different options here. One was a woman who went to God as daddy, right? She understood that she came into a family. But you also met somebody who was telling you, you have this, we have to go to the mountain to find work, performance. You had somebody who was about presence.
Yeah.
And you had somebody who was telling you about performance. And I think there are quite a number of Christians who, and to be honest, I'll be honest, I used to be in this bracket. Not mountain and all of that, but I could serve, right? I could do anything. Like, if it needed to be done, I didn't care. I would do it, right? I would do all the works. And every single time maybe I fell short or something happened, I'll feel like that was the end of my relationship. Like, he can't never, like, this one that I've done right now, he can't. And I mean, like, my walk with God has never always been perfect, to be honest. Right? But at the same time, it felt like every single time there was a stumbling block, right? I would just disappear.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, especially when I moved here, right? And to be honest, I didn't really go to church like the first few months. Like, I went just like a church and like just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But I never really went because it meant anything. Or I just started church hopping to see things. And then I finally chose a church and decided that I was going to be going to that specific church. And one of the things I realized was the way they talked about God, it wasn't about works. That was the very first time I heard them preaching, you have been saved by grace through faith. Right. That was the first time, not I heard them preaching, but the first time I actually understood it, that I'm not in this family just to work.
Yeah.
Right. It always reminded, I always saw myself as that prodigal son who came back. I always saw myself as that son, the other one who was in the house, who was always serving, right, but didn't know that it was relationship. So I was always the kind that I'll go to God just for the things that I wanted, go ask him for things, blah, blah, blah. And after those things have been done, I wouldn't have anything to say again. So I'll sit down in my prayer time and I'll be like, okay, so what do we do?
What's next?
What do we do next? What do you want? It was always, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And I remember one time just praying and having gone through something that was devastating. And it was like, I just need you to be. This is your year of rest. There is no doing. You're not taking on any task. You're not, that was last year. We're not doing nothing, right? We are just being. All you are just going to do is be daughter of God. And I said, okay, so how do they do that? What do we do? What do daughters do? Right? Because like I grew up in a family, my dad is present. My dad paid my fees, but I wouldn't say he's the most emotional person. We don't have, I call my dad 5 minutes.
And we're done.
Like, there's nothing to, there's really, he'll ask you how his career, how his work, how is it. I can call my mom and we'll gist for long, but it's more of a personality thing for him.
Yeah.
I think last year I had to realize that it didn't come from a place of hate. It just came from a place of, that's just how he is, right? And so I always modeled my relationship with God after that. That I only needed to go to God if I needed money, if I needed my school fees, if I needed something. But I could never have a conversation. Prayer was just always, I can pray for somebody, I can ask God for something, but I could never just stay.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't see anything.
Really, so I never saw God as a father.
Yeah.
I saw him as master. I saw him as leader. I saw him as roles, but never from a place of relationship. So I'm really happy that you started your journey looking for him from a place of relationship. And this is just to also just tell somebody who is in a performative state as well. Nothing wrong with wanting to serve God and do, right? We have been saved by grace through faith, but your works are a result of the faith that you have received. So please do want to do things for God, but let it be born out of relationship firstly. And I really, really struggled with that. Growing up a whole lot, I struggled with that because it was always about performance and not necessarily about like relationships. So there's a balance to sort of have there. But I'm also really happy about how one action can magnify God's love. Right?
Absolutely.
Just that one speaker showing up for you. Right? Just literally flipped everything over. And it's just making me feel, and I wanted us to take a bit of a pause here. One of the things that I do is when I hear the stories, it's very easy to see one person and just say it's just one person.
Yeah.
But these are real issues, right? Just like there is you,
Mhm.
right? There's 1,000 millions of other people. And before we came on here today, I actually went to check for statistics, right? About global statistics about fatherhood. And why it should matter to all of us, because I could be sitting down with Olamide today, but maybe this is your story, right? And this is the story of so many other people. So in the US, and this is like from different surveys, children are more likely to keep their faith if the fathers attend church. If fathers don't attend, only approximately 2% of children would attend regularly. So the first day this stat was shared in church, I was like, it does not matter how much I go to church. If my husband doesn't go to church, my children are not going to be, or even if they go, it will be performative.
Yeah.
Right? And then in the UK, so that's a faith statistic from the US. In the UK, 76% of young men in prison grew up without their father's presence. And when I read that, I almost started crying.
Yeah.
Because I'm a data person. I work with data, so I know that correlation does not always mean causation, right? But you cannot neglect the association of it, right? That if 76% of people, men in prison, grew up without their fathers, there is a correlation between like vices, acting out, right? It is less common when you have a dad or a man in the house present. And then on to identity. This was a survey done in Nigeria. So UNICEF estimates that 43% of children under 18 are fatherless. And that is about 17.5 million youths in Nigeria without dads. Now, when we're looking at the stats in the UK and you're looking at the stats in Nigeria, if 17.5 million youths are fatherless, and we see the vices attributed to it, it's a huge problem. And finally, this one was done relating to finance in South Africa. Only 35.6% of children live with their biological fathers. And this absence is tied to poverty and instability because a lot of them are living in one-income households. Some of them have had to do other things to get money. And to be honest, I might have said this from a country, but a lot of these are things that we see.
We see it almost every day, yeah.
Everywhere. And so these things are real. You might hear one person's story, right? Stories are not just about stories. Stories turn into statistics.
Absolutely.
Olamide here today, another person tomorrow, millions of others that are affected. And this absence affects our faith, it affects our trust, our intimacy, it affects our relationships. And I just wanted to say that that's the thing about numbers. They aren't just numbers, but they show up in our lives as anger. They show up as with attachment issues. They show up with intimacy struggles. They show up in finance. And most importantly, they show up in our faith. Because I once heard somebody say that if my earthly father was absent, how can I trust that there is a heavenly father that I cannot see? And to be honest,
it's logical.
It's very, very logical. So you got into that relationship with God and it feels like it changed everything. It changed.
Oh my God.
How did that feel like?
I'm literally crying now.
What did that understanding of the fatherhood of God feel like?
I think initially it was like at the surface level for me and God, where every day I'll sit down with the Bible, study a place. It was like God gave me curriculums, right? So the Holy Spirit would help me to understand certain places. And I started reading up John, because I started reading Lazarus' story, what God had done for him, and all of those things. So it was initially at the surface level, and I'll just study my Bible and then we go.
Yeah.
I remember 2020, I had gone back to school to complete my project. COVID didn't allow us to complete projects, so I had to go back to school to complete my project. And it was November. I think I just marked my birthday that year. And that was in my room. So prior to 2020, I would just remember things that happened for the reason and then cry. It's And that made me realize something, that you can actually have a walk with God and you have salvation, but that doesn't mean that you are healed. Yeah, so you will go to church, you will pray, you will do every other thing, but you are not healed. And I think it was 2020, I realized the reason why God has started with me with the book of with the story of Lazarus, how Lazarus, 3 days Jesus had gone there and then told him to rise up and all of those things. And the last thing that Jesus had said, you would have thought it was just fine for him to be going around with the things that was, still around him. And Jesus told them, said, let him loose, because there was still like things around him. So yes, it was already out of the grave. It wasn't no longer in the grave, but there was still issues. There were things that, it had gone and, God was explaining to me that 2020, like, this is a prototype. A Lazarus girl, this is something that happened with you. But then after you're out, you still needed a level of healing, right? To then realize certain things that actually done. So 2020, I was just crying because those things are still eating up. And while I was in the room, Ekiti was so quiet. So by 8, everybody's already in their rooms. They're not doing anything. So I had to use a pillow to like calm my mouth. I think it was like 2 a.m. or thereabouts. I was crying so much, and I think it was the first time I would literally hear God speak to me. And in my room while I was crying there, I heard, I love you.
I can't imagine what that would have felt like.
I am like, you love me. Thank you. If you don't love me,
For real.
if you don't love me, will you send yourself to die for me? I said, it's because you love me, you sent yourself to die for me. Thank you so much. And then I continued crying. And then he said, I love you. And I'm like, thank you so much. I know you love me. That's why I sent yourself to die for me. God bless you. Saying God bless you. And then the next one again, I love you. I said, okay. It seems there's something to listen to here. I said, okay. I know you love me. And he said, stop talking. I love you. And he said, you don't know that I love you. You only know about it, but you have not experienced it. He said, I love you not because of anything I've even done yet. I love you because I've chosen you. I called you right before anything, before your mother and your father met. I have loved you. This is not about what you will do. This is not about what you have done. It's not even about what you will do. So it wasn't about performance or anything. And he said, look, I love you. And I've been sending people to you. I won't come down to come and be walking around with you 100% physically. But I've sent people to you. Why are you not accepting it? And that was the first time that the realization of accepting and receiving the love of God came to me. I'm like, so there's something like that? I didn't know. I cried dirty that day because it was like I've sent people. And for me, because of the issues I was battling with, dependence and all of those things, I felt like I didn't need anything from anyone. I wasn't rich, but I acted self-sufficient. I was in that space where I felt like, if you do something for me now, it's not that you want something in return. So I didn't see anything like, oh, you would do something for me, I don't want anything. I felt like you needed me to also give you back something. And then God was saying, men are naturally selfish. So if I tell someone to do something for you, best believe that I touch their heart for your sake. I cried. I cried. It's like 5 a.m. In the morning, I said, oh my God. And he said, don't see anything. I just want to feel you up. So I just sat down there, soaked. And till date, I still do. Father, it's time for you to fill me up. I'll just go back and sit down. I'm not doing nothing. I'll just sit down there until it started becoming thicker and thicker. So I sat down there and he told me how much I love you. I was just saying, I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much throughout. And that like turned it 100% around. There was no performance. I wasn't trying to. And that also brought me to a place where if you actually know that God loves you and you've experienced it, when you have a stumbling block, you don't run away from God. You will run to Him. So it changed the game for me. So every time I did something, I would just go say, Daddy, this is what is happening with me. I know it's not meant to be showing in my life, but look, this is what is happening. And then he would say, sit down. Let me teach you another story. Let me take you to the book of David. I would see a video come up on YouTube. I would see somebody talk about
So
it. It's so intentional. Like, I would then literally see different things. And when the devil is trying to come, I'm like, I've got receipts, man. Just go sit you. Don't stress me. And so that was how it, like, the whole entire work with God became juicy. I bought my journal, I forgot it. My journal is like filled with, conversations with God. Sometimes it's just literal conversations. Sometimes I have to like just write it down just to feel, that connection. Sometimes I know God will responds with actions. That's one thing I've learned about him. So sometimes we will be actions and I'm like, I saw your love note today. Thank you for that one. So it became real. It became something that I could touch. It became something I could feel. Right. So even in days where, because God will bring you to the level of maturity as time goes on, and sometimes he just needs you to trust him, even if you can't touch, feel, or hear anything. Just trust that your father is there and he's truly there. So that has been the whole game-changing experience for me.
The fatherhood of God will heal you.
Yeah.
It is the one thing. Like, you can walk all your years as somebody who knows God as Jireh, who knows God as Rapha, who knows God as healer. You might even know him as El Shaddai, right? And not know that he is Father. And until you come to that understanding of Father, it was one of the ways Jesus always started his prayers. Our Father who art in heaven. Whenever he was talking, he would say, Our Father. How much more you that's how much you don't
when he was 12 years old, that's his father experience we're looking when he was like, you know how I feel about my father's work. That was the difference between John, the disciples, and the other disciples. They ran away when problem came because they didn't understand that aspect.
It was about relationship.
They didn't understand. You would only find John at when Jesus was being crucified. He was the only guy that was there. And that was how Jesus was able to give him the last assignment to like take care of his mother. So
it heals you. And I want us to then end on this point, right? It's very easy. It's not very easy. Well, one of the first steps, like you said, is just soaking it. Allow God fill you. Be still. Enter into a season of rest. Enter into a season where you study the word of God. You cannot know God outside of his word, right? So you can go to church all your life, but if you do not know the word of God that you are reading and allow the Holy Spirit to read it upon you, you won't get it. You won't get it. But there was something you said, and I want us to end on that note because, you see, our relationship or the outcome of our Christian walk or our walk as believers isn't just vertical. Between us and God. It's also very horizontal. And to be honest, God loves you regardless of your daddy issues, but a lot of people won't if you keep having it. What practical steps have you taken or are you taking to manage the horizontal relationship that is with people? There was something you said that was so powerful. You said that if God, men are selfish. So if someone does something for you, it is because I touched them. I always say something that, God, I'm grateful for your love. I'm grateful for the love of those that you have sent. Yes. Right. But as somebody who grew up with those issues, right, what are some intentional steps that you have to take to allow those people's love?
Okay. Look, I mentioned, after the whole conversation with God about I love you and all of that, and he told me. So it first of all came from a place of revelation. You get to say, I sent these people to you and don't chase them, accept their love. Normally I won't say yes if you say, oh, can I? Even to my very little ones, my cousins, they say, oh, can I help you sweep? I'll say no. I'll sweep. Can you see, like, even to the very little things, it was showing up in all of those ways. So some of the ways that I've really like gotten, to now accept people's love is first understanding that place of being a child of God, being a daughter to God. I believe that everything will work together. So if I see that my friends are showing up to say, oh, I want to help you, I'm not the best of friends that you can have. I'm not even proud about it.
I'm sorry to all my friends. I'm very sorry.
I'm actually very sorry as well in case they see this. I'm not the best of friend, and I'm not the best of friend in the sense that I'm not that person that will call you all the days, like every single day and all of that. But the way God has really given me people that if I go 5 months, they will still come back and say, oh, how are you? I'm like, somebody reached out to me yesterday and I wanted to cry. I was like, Jesus, I forgot it. I didn't even reach out to you. But the way they like show me love is crazy. Do you get? And when I know that it's my father behind it, I just accept it. Do you get? I'm also like working on my own aspect, on my own part of, learning how to show up for people, learning how to communicate, because it's also one of the things that I struggle with. Learning how to listen to people, learn how to show up. How do I show up for you? Do you get? So these are like practical steps to don't just, study your Bible anyway. Study your Bible crazily, because as much as you are eating and all of that, it's in layers. Your healing is not one curve. It'll go up, come down, go up, come down. So it's in layers. Sometimes God will show you as I'm your covering. The next curriculum in the next 6 months can be I'm your security. Do you get? So in that place, you don't trust things. You don't trust the money that your salary gives you. You don't trust certain things. You trust God. So even if that job is gone, you're not panicking and say, where you go? You know God is your security. Do you get? So it's in layers and all of that. So study your Bible and all of that. But also practical ways. Listen to podcasts. There are people who are going through this. You're not the first, you'll not be the last. Do you get? So I know one of the things that really helped my relationship when God started, one thing about me is when God starts to speak to me about a topic, I gather sermons. I gather teachings. I gather podcasts. I gather materials. As I read them, I'll consume until I become very strong. Like, okay, yeah, you cannot move on from this. So I know I listened to Soyo a lot. And I listened to Joyce Meyer. Oh God, Joyce Meyer. Her stories about father. To the little things like God will tell her the kind of color to wear on this day. She get like, so I began to like consume materials that would just strengthen me in that kind of work. So in that way also, I just knew how to like communicate with people, reach out to them. If I do something wrong, because of how I grew up, I couldn't be in that space where you tell me that I was really wrong. I just feel like I put in home, and that would be the best way. So if you tell me that I've done something wrong, I'm like, I do can make it. Do you know what the things I put into this? So God started to like teach me from the relationship as well. First is my best friend. I'm so grateful for that girl. So she would tell me, look, I don't care if we don't talk to him, but I'll tell you the truth. And it just sting me a lot, like mad. But I still had to like listen. And then, if you have a relationship with God, cuts across everything, it will tell you when you're doing something that's very wrong. Even though it's very little, it still tell you that thing you did wrong. And one thing I know God really loves is you being repentant, coming to him and say, I really know that this is it. So listen, studying the word of God, listening to sermons, reading materials, reaching out to people. I've had to attend coaching classes. Some were free, some I paid for. I remember last year I paid back to back for coaching classes just because people who have gone ahead, who have gone through the same things. They had systems and structures. You don't need to necessarily struggle by yourself to get it all. You can reach out to people who have figured it out, and you can ride on their wings to also reach a place that you really want to be. So those are the things that really helped.
Very good. And like there's this Yoruba proverb. I might not be able to say it exactly how they say it, but the meaning is essentially that if you teach a child at home, the child has to go out and reteach himself.
Yeah,
right?
Train yourself.
And retrain yourself. And I remember growing up, my mom used to say that thing a lot. It's like the home training here would most likely stop at this place. You have to go
and continue yourself.
But I sort of apply it to my life now. When people say that's just how I am, I remember at the point I was always saying that's just how I am, right? I used to be very blunt. Oh my God, my mom used to call me mouth of blade.
Yeah.
Right, because I would just say it like the way it comes to my mouth. I still am, but now I know how to curtail myself and not be rude, because there's a thin line between bluntness and rudeness.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I still tell you straightforward, but I wouldn't be rude to you about it. And there was a day I was like, that's just how I am. And God said, no, that's not how you are.
Yeah.
That's not who I have made you to be. Bluntness is not the fruit of the spirit.
Actually.
Right? Like, bluntness, just saying things as they are, is not the fruit of the spirit.
Yeah.
You have to be able to control and say things from a place of love, right? And I think it started materializing in how I now started relating with people, as well. There was one thing you said about allowing people help you.
Yeah. So needed.
God help me. God, no, to be honest, it was this year that I had to, last year actually, that I had to learn that, just allow And I don't think, I'm sure my friends will be watching this and be like, I still like 10% into it, but it's so important.
Yeah.
I think one other thing I wanted to add to what you said, and I want to talk about it from a point of people who have daddy issues and then it affects their romantic relationships. It keeps specifically to me. Not every male friendship has to be either a father figure, a brother figure. Some of them should just be friends.
Those your friend.
Like they're they're more like it. They're just friends. I think one of the things that help is just allowing, especially genuine people. I'm not saying that there aren't bad both men and women out there. But as a woman, please, not every male relationship one needs to be romantic or needs to have a certain tag of daddy or older brother or things like that. Just allow some of those things be like that. I think the second thing I wrote it down here was that look out if you are not very watching about the things that people do for you. You wouldn't realize that you're healing. Right? Yeah. There was one singular action my dad took this year that healed years of fear. Right? I was struggling financially. And I didn't tell anybody. Hyper independence. I did not tell nobody that I was struggling. And my mom came over to stay with me, and she noticed that I couldn't do a lot of things that I would typically want to do. So she didn't tell me anything. But the next day, I woke up and I saw money in my accounts. Now, my dad is in Nigeria. If you're sending a child that stays in the UK money, right? I saw it, and it literally covered all my bills for the month. And I went back to my mom and was like, daddy sent me money. My dad hasn't sent me money in years. Like, years. Like, that kind of money. Let me put that quote. And I was like, why did daddy send me money? What does he want me to do with it? Like, does he want me to buy something for him? No, she just sent it. And I can't, that thing, right? I went back to God and I cried so much. And I was like, you could have just asked me. Like that, you could have just, and I kid you not, for like 4 months after that, he kept sending me money I think when I had to just tell him, it's okay, just stop. Like, it's all right. I know, but I went back to God and I was like, he was like that, this is who I am, right? When I touch the hearts of people to do things for you, it is first a show of my own love to you, and a show that people might not show up how you want them to show up, but the way they show up matters to you that moment as well. My dad might not have been able to help me in some areas, emotions, no, but he helped me financially. And I think that's something that you need to be able to know, that different relationships will bring different things for you. Accept it.
Yeah. 100.
Right. And there are some relationships as a woman that only male friendships would help you. Good male friendships will help you. Same with the other gender. There's some things that you would never really be able to understand unless you have good female friendships as well on your own. And to be honest, I'm just checking my notes and just saying that I think we've covered everything, right? We've spoken about how God's love is not about performance. We've spoken about how, when we brought up the story of the prodigal son, God is a restorer. He does not reject.
At all.
Right. We've come to a realization that our earthly dads, we don't project our earthly dad's nature onto the nature of God, or rather, the nature of God should project onto our relationships. I particularly love that.
He said something that if you're being evil, knows how to give good to your children. Think about him with he gives. I remember last year I was struggling and he said, look, I don't give you gifts that make you cry. I give you good and perfect. That's my own thing. So just imagine how projecting your elderly father. That's so true. I'm not doing well there. So
is there any last thing you want to tell someone who is maybe going through this, or any form of, and I mean, I know that we might have spoken it from a gender perspective, women, But I think this is very gender neutral. It might show up differently for guys, but we all suffer from daddy wounds. And maybe we'll have another episode with mommy wounds because those are very real
That's
as well. But is there anything you want to tell somebody, male, female, young, old, who is going through this?
For male, because I have a brother. So. And I have someone who now acts as an elder brother and is so genuine. Yeah. And he also like understands or he shares that kind of thing. So he too has like gone through it. We share the same birthday. So he too has like gone through it. And when we have conversation, and I had conversation with my brother as well, I realized that they both have father wounds. Like it's so real. And theirs is even like, I feel like it's not very strong. But then when I look at it again, it is stronger for them.
Yes.
Because fathers are meant to train them. Our mothers trained us. Do you get? What we needed from our father was the love, softness. So that softness, because I teaching me this year. Softness.
Wearing colors.
Don't be so hard. Yes. Like I brought you doing. When I said we come so even you were weak and not a person.
So real.
I need you to be soft, to be feminine and all of that. So of course I teach me that one. And that's like different. But for the guys, it's greater because they were meant to be trained. But now imagine that the person who is meant to train them is not there. It's crazier because they then go into a world that they are not prepared for. Right? So for the guys out there who are also seeing this, first thing is admit it. Because the nature of guys is like they've not learned to admit things. Right? So learn to admit it. First, admit that yes, you need help. You get, admit that you need help and reach out to people. It's not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's a strength when you reach out because you need help from somebody. Right? And you're not going to be the first person. You won't be the last as well. So reach out to like genuine. It could be your pastor. It could be somebody that you highly respect. When you reach out to them, they would 100% want to like help you. It's just that when you close your mouth, you receive that help. You get so, and I know it's so much for women because this one you're having women's program, it's so much for women.
Yeah.
But when it comes to guys, it's like very rare. But then reach out, admit it, and then just open your mouth and ask for help. And your relationship with God, so very intact. God will teach anybody. Even a donkey is ready to learn. He will teach donkeys. So yeah, I think that's just it for me.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on here. I think you guys have learned a lot. Please feel free to share your stories. You can share it to us on Instagram, or send us emails. We'll link it there. Or drop your thoughts in the comments. What are some ways that you've seen these daddy issues show up in your life or in the life of people around you? And what are some steps that you are taking, right? Remember that your work as a believer and your work as a child of God, let's start off with that. Your work as a child of God should show in your everyday life. There was something she said that was so powerful. You can't say, this is how I am, right? There is a certain way God wants you to be, and you want to continue in that light. And this is also just to tell someone out there who is still doubting the fatherhood of God, who is still doubting the love of God. God loves you. Scatter. Mad. Like God absolutely loves you. It is overwhelming, and it's not a love that is calling you onto works. It is a love that is calling you onto relationship, right? One-to-one, you and your father, right? And maybe you don't have an experience of what that looks like, and it's hard to conceive that, oh, I didn't have an earthly dad, or I had a poor earthly dad, right? And you're not projecting it on God. Why not just try God? Why not try God through the word of God and through scriptures, through a good church, a good local church? Try God, and let's see how that will influence every other thing in your life. God's love is not absent, it's not distant, and it's not forceful. It is loving, it is caring, and it's going to change everything around you. So you can say today that this full behavior ends with me today. I'm going to find the true love of God. It's been amazing being here with Olamide. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I'm still having goosebumps because this was a great episode. Please like, subscribe, share again, and do comment. Yes, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And please share this with somebody who needs it. One person, two people who would really need to hear this. Love you all. I'll see you next time. Bye.